Hello listeners, welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the Site Shed. My name is Matt Jones, and today you're joining us for a very exciting podcast. If I told you guys you could be personally mentored by a gentleman that has built a $40 million a year building business in the United States, what would you say? Or what if I said to you, instead of mentoring, how about I give you the exact framework that he uses to develop and build that business? What would that mean to you? Well, if that sounds good to you and you'd like that, well, then you're in luck, because today, Stephen Scoggins from Journey Principles Institute is going to give you that framework. And this is a framework, as I said, which has helped him generate a $40 million a year business, a business that serves 380 staff right across the United States and is responsible for building 3,000 homes a year. That's some pretty big numbers. So don't for a second take this podcast for granted. Stephen's an amazing guy with an incredible story. And to top it off, he's also given the listeners to this podcast an exclusive offer, which there's going to be links to in the show notes. It's going to give you access to some of his training for free for a day. So I would encourage you to get across there and check that out. I know you're going to love this. I certainly did. And anyway, let's dive right in. The Site Shed podcast is made possible because of Tradie Web Guys, creators of beautiful websites designed specifically for tradies and contractors. If you're tired of dealing with web designers that have no idea about your industry, then head across to tradiewebguys.com.au and reach out. Like many companies from all over the place, you'll be very glad you did. Before we get started today, I just wanted to make a quick shout out to Uncle Tenton from the USA. He left us a glowing 5-star review in Apple iTunes. He said, lighthearted fun, packed with information. It's hard to find the right mix of fun and something to grow your mind and inspire your heart. The Site Shed does all of it. Thank you very much, Uncle Tenton. And I would just like to say for you guys, if you do want to leave us a review, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or wherever you consume your podcasting delightful audios. It does help us with the rankings, which is why we ask for them. So if you can spare 5 minutes and you are enjoying the show, we would greatly appreciate it.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the Site Shed podcast. Thank you once again for sharing your earbuds with us around the world. We were joined today with Mr. Stephen Scoggins. Stephen, welcome back.
What's up, my friend?
Mate, this is a bit of a follow-up episode, if you will. For the listeners that did not catch the first one, I encourage you strongly to go back and check that out, because Stephen's got an amazing story of how he basically took a business from turning over nothing to where it is today, turning over $40 million right across the States. The Custom Homes Exterior has certainly, well, you were saying, Stephen, it's probably the leading exterior company in the US now. Is that right?
We've been designated to that by the suppliers. That's a very
it's a pretty accurate.
When you think about James Hardy, who actually started in Australia, that's a very nice thing for them to say.
Yeah, wow. Okay. Well, yeah, listeners, go check that out for sure, because it was an amazing podcast, and it's a really, really interesting story. In this episode, however, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. Now, we did touch on it slightly in the previous. Stephen, your company, Journey Principles Institute, which was born out of, I suppose, in one way, your development of Custom Homes Exterior. Would that be accurate to say?
Absolutely, yeah. CHE was the flagship and the foundation in which I was able to enrich myself.
Yep.
And then I learned how to enrich other people. So definitely, for sure.
You've certainly had an interesting story. You know, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and as a result, you've made it quite clear that you've put a lot of emphasis on personal development, self-development, and then as a result, the development of your team. So I'm really interested. Let's dive into this. Who are we talking to in this episode?
You know, I really feel like you're going to talk to yourself. And here's a reason why. I think I mentioned in the last podcast, but the greatest mistake I ever made in a business. All right. And I made a lot of mistakes and survived most of them, thank God. But the greatest mistake I ever made in business was not building myself, not keeping up with the pace of the business, in which in many ways you should be a little ahead of your business on a regular basis. Yeah. And if you're going to lead, if you're going to be the entrepreneur, if you're going to be someone who is worthy of stewarding people's lives, then you should be ahead of the curve and constantly learning how to grow yourself.
Is it kind of like personal leadership, you know, like taking control of yourself and taking responsibility for yourself?
I believe so. I think most of us, when we're honest with ourselves, we wake up, we hit the alarm clock. We may jump into a shower, we may hit the gym, we may grab a cup of coffee, we may read a book, We may do a devotional. We may not do any of that. We may just get out of the car and hop in and go.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, if you're not spending at least an hour to an hour and a half on making yourself better day after day, then what inevitably happens is your day ends up running you. Your lifestyle ends up becoming you working in your business as an employee on a regular basis, and it reduces your ability to create opportunities for other people, including yourself.
Yeah.
By having a proven plan in order to measure yourself and understand where you're at day after day, in order to do that, the importance comes down to making sure that happens so you if I could talk today, I'd have it made. But if you could actually do those things, you could actually open the door for yourself and the opportunities that lay before you. You can literally hold yourself back by not working on yourself.
Right. So what are we talking about here, Stephen? I mean, are we going to dive straight in here to the 8 pillars of life?
Well, it's funny, Steve. We talked about Steve Myrick on the first show, and Steve Myrick obviously was one of my most instrumental mentors that I've had. Dave Ramsey's been one. Chris Lacroto's been one. There's been several people that have really poured into me. But Steve Myrick always told me something. I remember, and I'll never forget this. We were driving around the subdivision, a little white Jeep Grand Cherokee we talked about last time.
Yeah.
And I remember him pointing over at his dashboard with this old wrinkled finger, with his nice little pearly white dentures, because he was in his 80s. And he points over his dashboard and he goes, "Stephen, what do you see there?" I'm like, "It's a sticky note." He said, "What does it say?" I said, "It says grow." He goes, "No, what does it really say?" I'm like, "It says grow." It says G.R.O.W. It says grow. He said, "No, it's a roadmap for life." I'm like, here you go again, throwing this weird stuff at me. I have no idea what you're talking about, old man. And I'm 16. I'm like 16, 17 at the time. He said, "Stephen," he says, "the G stands for gain perspective. Gaining perspective is nothing more than looking at things from as many different angles as possible. Most people in life always look at life from the inside out, not the outside in.
Mm-hmm.
Learn to look at things from as many angles as possible. Getting mentors, getting education, finding things to read, great podcasts, wink, wink, great videos, right? Gaining perspective is knowledge and understanding and action.
Yep.
If you'll take the time to look at things from a different angle, you'll see that most things are not as they appear." I do this thing sometimes when I'm presenting from stage, when I travel and speak, and there's this little tool that we throw up on the screen, and it looks like a big circle. And I always ask the audience, "What do you guys see here?" And I've heard everything from a fried egg to the Target symbol to a galaxy. So, it's funny. And I said, "Well, what if you just change the way you looked at one thing?" And everybody's like, kind of, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And then what you do is you show them the next picture from that same set of circles, but from a different side view. And they very quickly realize, you hear the audience go, "Oh." And what it is it's a coffee cup sitting inside of a saucer. See, when you look at things from one point of view, you can only get one set of answers.
Yeah.
However, if you learn to look at things from multiple points of view, you'll have multiple answers and you can choose the best one to help you move you forward. So his first little tidbit was gain perspective of his G, his grow. Yep. And then the next one he asked, he told me he said, the R is recognize your roadblocks. He said the gaining perspective sets you up to recognize potential hazards, roadblocks. How many people would walk into a pothole if they could see it ahead of time? Right?
Right.
The answer is no one. Of course not. Right? Life is the same way. What if you could see yourself running out of cash before it happens? Would you run out of cash, or would you sidestep? Would you make an adjustment? What if you could see a relationship that's ready to fall apart before it happens? This assessment of recognizing your roadblocks is not to breed fear into your life, but rather prepare you for possible sidestepping or possible ways to overcome the hurdle.
How do you address these scenarios before they occur?
Again, we talked about this, the 4 questions before in the last episode, but there are 4 what I call discernment questions. They're questions that are just vague enough that cause your brain to ponder and reflect before you respond.
Yeah.
You see, the human brain is set up in such a way that as you ask it a question, it has to answer. It cannot not answer a question. It doesn't matter if you say, "What am I going to eat tonight?" Your brain is going to give you 10 different things to eat tonight.
Right.
You can ask yourself, why do I suck? Why does this always happen to me? And your brain will give you 10 reasons why it always happens to you or why you suck. Or you can ask 4 specific questions that can help you gain clarity in everything you do.
Yep.
What's right? What's wrong? What's missing? And what's confusing? You can do this with any area of your life, business, relationships, personal, physical, doesn't matter. What's right with my relationship? What's missing from my relationship? What's confusing about my relationship? What's missing from my business? What's confusing about my business? You see where I'm going?
Yep.
These questions are just vague enough to cause you to reflect and ponder. Don't underestimate the power of a pencil and a yellow pad and 4 questions.
Okay, what's the O?
The O is organize a plan. Once you gain enough perspective, you've taken the chance to look at your threats and struggles that may hinder you along the way. You are now ready to create a plan. You're now ready to think about and strategize ways to get over the hurdles before they even get there. Again, going back to that whole imagery of not walking to a pothole if you knew it was coming.
Yep.
Because you've taken the time to discern what potential hazards lay in front of you. So organizing a plan.
We talked in the last episode a little bit about the difference between strategizing and tactizing.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference? Is a tactical approach like more reactive?
I think a tactical approach to me is always how.
Okay.
I think a strategical approach is always why.
Gotcha.
Why is it important that I take this action? Why is it important that we do things this way? Why is it important that we implement this process? Why is it important? In other words, what benefits lay before us?
Okay.
And what threats lay before us?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And then what have we got? W, I guess.
The W is the easiest one. Work the plan, man. Work the plan. It's I know it seems like a cheesy acronym, but it really has changed my life.
Yep.
It really has caused me to reflect times when I didn't want to. I shared a little bit in the last episode when I had to terminate some long-standing relationships that I had with my business,
mm-hmm.
one of which had been with me for 15 years.
Wow.
And it was this approach that gave me the courage to pick myself back up and get to work, to make sure that no one was harmed during the effort of someone else's outcome that they were seeking, I guess is the best way to say it politely.
Right.
And grow really works. Gain perspective. I had to ask myself, what can I learn from this? Mm-hmm. How many different ways can I view this? What do I need to put in place to prevent this from happening again? What do I need to put into place right now in order to keep things not only moving, but thriving?
Yep.
This little acronym, if you'll really take it to heart and really spend some time using the 4 questions and gaining perspective and things of that nature, if you'll just spend the time, I guarantee it'll be a worthwhile exercise, especially right now if you find yourself in a confusing time, either in your business or in your life specifically.
So let's move on, I suppose, a little bit to like how this framework applies to Journey Principles Institute, or how you communicate it to people that are going through the program, or whatever it is.
Well, the growth framework is the overarching element, if you will.
Yeah.
Now, it's like imagine a computer, if you will. And I know you guys have dealt with this, but you have the little plus icon that sits right beside the folder.
Yep.
And if you want to go inside that folder, you click the plus sign,
mm-hmm.
and you can just keep going all the way. Well, the growth framework is the folder.
Okay.
As you hit the plus sign, you get into 8 pillars.
Okay.
You get into Transform You, transformational content, theology. Those different things build upon themselves to build upon you. I believe that we all end up serving the person that we once were. So the person I'm going to be called to serve, the person I'm going to be called to inspire, educate, transform, is the Stephen Scoggins that was homeless in a car who wanted to start a business and didn't know how. Your best business will always come from the person you once were. The quicker you can get past the person you once were and onto the person you need to become, the quicker you can begin serving those people in the marketplace.
Interesting. Do you think that's a problem that a lot of people fall back on, but they don't do that?
I feel like that most of us refuse to deal with things that have hurt us or held us back.
Gotcha.
It's easier to ignore them or point them out in someone else than it is to actually focus on yourself for 12 months. You can radically change the course of your life in 12 months by focusing on really developing you,
mm-hmm.
really understanding what holds you back, what makes you tick, what you're passionate about, what motivates you, what takes away from your passion and motivations, right? I can't sit in an accountant seminar all day long. It would drive that that takes my passion away from me.
Yeah.
However, my controller and CFO, that guy loves numbers. He can do it all day long. I would be bored out of my mind. I have to be moving and meeting people and talking to people, so, but I also know that some of the things that I had to overcome personally, for example, are self-sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
I had to become okay with becoming successful, as strange as that sounds. Why? Because in my youth, I was taught that rich people are dangerous, or people that steward wealth are evil, or I was supposed to be a trade carpenter for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? There are certain things that we each have to face and overcome, and it's very different for every person.
Right.
We have the 7 enemies of identity that we go through quite a bit in some of the Transform You online content, and we could talk for hours on all this stuff. But essentially, you need to know what's holding you back by looking at your identity and working on it.
Okay. Well, I mean, look, you've touched a little bit on these 8 pillars, so why don't we go into a little bit about those?
Sure. Well, all right. So here's the deal. You're human. I'm human. Therefore, we're going to face a lot of the same stuff in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned very early on that we're all deal with 8 specific pillars in our life. And if we'll plan accordingly, so if we'll take the GROW framework, gain perspective, recognize roadblocks, organize a plan, and work a plan. Okay, very simple. If you'll take that and apply it to 8 specific areas of your life, you'll go from maybe a hindering style life to a thriving life. Because inevitably, before you actually learn to focus on these things and actually work on them on a regular basis, inevitably you're really strong in something and really weak in others.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here are the 8 pillars that I believe that we all will deal with.
Yep.
You have an emotional health, emotional stability. What I mean by that is your inner being, your inner self, your significance, your identity, your character, your integrity, your value systems, your motives, your whys, your passions. All of that comes from your emotional stability within yourself.
Yep.
One of the greatest hurdles that I faced, I told you early on, was self-sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I used to self-sabotage. I didn't think I was worthy of something. So therefore, I would deliberately disrupt it, even though I was deliberately doing it subconsciously. That's a tongue twister. But those are things that you have to become aware of so you can work on them. Emotional intelligence would also kind of hop into the emotional bucket.
Mm-hmm.
How well can you relate to others? How well do you communicate? And all of these things kind of build upon themselves. Another one is professional. We all want to have a forward motion in life. The only time we stay unhappy is when we feel like we're not moving.
So this is professional health. Is this the second pillar?
Professional as in what you bring to the table.
Okay.
Your career, your service, your gifting, your talents.
Yeah.
How do you bring your gifting, your talents to the marketplace? How do you exercise them for the betterment of other people?
Mm-hmm.
The next one's contribution. You have to contribute. You have to feel like what you do matters. And the only way to know what you do matters is to constantly put contribution into practice.
Example?
Making sure that you're moving forward. Well, for example,
this podcast.
I'm trying to contribute. Yeah, I'm trying to contribute now. Right? Yeah. So I'm incredibly passionate about helping people get unstuck and onto the life that they're supposed to have.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because I've seen far too many people, including myself, my mom, my dad, my grandmother, my brothers, my sisters. There's far too many people around me. Close circle, big circle, outstanding circle. Everywhere I look, there are people who are not living life to the fullest. How do I contribute? What do I bring to the marketplace? What do I bring to them? I bring to them, hopefully, something that will encourage their mind and motivate their heart day after day after day. Sometimes it's an image on Facebook. Sometimes it's a podcast. Sometimes it's a radio show.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's a book. Sometimes it's me speaking from stage.
Mm-hmm.
All in all, it comes down to what can I offer the world to make this place better than when I got here?
Mm-hmm.
That's the power of contribution.
Yeah, love it.
Those that spend most of their life with anxiety and depression oftentimes suffer from a contributional disease. They are not in a place in which they feel like they're contributing enough where their identity and their confidence is repetitively shaped and exercised.
And do you think sometimes there's like people will get caught up in an imbalance between some of these? Like they may be, maybe too oversubscribed to the professional than they are to their emotional health or something like that.
Absolutely, which is one of the reasons why you have to have a balanced approach. Now, what we'll typically do is we have an assessment tool that we use to help people uncover really where they're most efficient, the quickest.
Okay.
We don't believe in the word failure. We believe in the word learning. You're not failing, you're learning. We also don't believe that in condemning or shaming yourself or guilting yourself into certain emotional states. We believe that if you'll take the time to uncover and explore and discover these areas of your life, a lot of times we can help you focus on those while you're still building the areas that are still strong for you.
Gotcha.
Because it's very easy, especially for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are the worst. And I'm saying this because I are one. We like to think about changing the world. We like to think about building a business. We like to think about getting the next customer. We like to think about all that stuff, but we don't like to think about how do we stop self-sabotaging.
Right.
We don't think about how do we break free from pride and arrogance or cockiness. We don't think about, hey, maybe I should learn to understand what a P&L and a balance sheet is if I'm going to be in business.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We love to focus on the vision, what's coming, rather than strategizing on how to maintain and grow what's already here.
So what's the number 4?
Number 4 is physical. It's your health.
Yeah.
A lot of entrepreneurs struggle with this as well. It's very easy to hit the fast food joint to and from places, not go to the gym or not do something actively to raise your dopamine and your serotonin levels on a regular basis.
Okay.
Meanwhile, you're going through stress. And on a regular basis, that stress is creating additional cortisol, which actually eats brain tissue as well as the actual muscle fibers in your body.
Right.
So this is why it's important to do all of them. The next one is, I think, is my favorite, intellectual, which is what we're playing around with tonight. You and I are spitballing back and forth the strength behind your mindset, how to grow it, how to shape it. What do you need to learn today so you can plan for tomorrow? What do you need to learn today so you can give tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
The intellectual piece, I think, is an important one because I think that's one we don't often think of.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It's probably one of those things, isn't it? Like people seem a little bit more conducive to finishing a day's work, going home and sitting in front of the idiot box as opposed to maybe picking up a book or listening to a podcast on the way home from work as opposed to listening to ABC radio or whatever it is, some commercial radio.
That's right. Well, here's the thing. You go watch that TV, you're going to be having blue light.
Right.
Blue light will actually keep you awake.
Okay.
So you're not actually going to get rested. A book, on the other hand, or a podcast or something along those lines will actually put you in a more relaxing state, will actually make it easier to sleep. Therefore, you limit and reduce your anxiety as well as your day-to-day stress level.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to agree. I think TV is the modern day bane of existence, to be honest. I mean, we haven't had television in our house in 8 years. And I think it's true. Like people just get so caught up in this whole TV mentality. Mind-boggling.
Yeah, because it's easy to zone out. And unfortunately, when you zone out, and I'm saying this from personal experience as well, you can alienate those that you love most.
Right.
It's true you may have had a hard day, a rough day. It's true that you may have had to solve problems all day long, and the last thing you want to do is talk and share. But I will tell you, one of the biggest blessings I've ever seen was I came home one day after working an 18-hour day, traveling in 3 states in one day. Come home and my son walks up to me and says, "Hey, can we throw the ball for a little bit?"
Yeah.
I was tired.
Yeah.
All I wanted to do was sit in front of a boob tube and go stupid. So here's the thing. I love my son. So I said, "Look, I'll throw with you for a little bit." I want you to know we ended up throwing for over an hour and a half because in the first 10 or 15 minutes, you get your energy back. I found it more relaxing than watching TV.
Yeah.
Because I was able to hang out with my kid, watch him smile, kind of encourage his baseball career, so to speak. So there's some secrets there.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes into the next pillar, which is relational, your family life, your friendships, those that can add value. The worst thing you can do, and I even say this in my book, isolation is a trap. You have to avoid isolation. You have to avoid feeling like you want to be by yourself all the time. You have to have relational connections in order to grow yourself and even develop a business or even a family life. You cannot zone out all the time. You can't just run off, especially when times get hard. When times get hard, you need to resist isolation the most and actually find a mentor or someone that could speak life into you as you're going through something tough.
Stephen, I walk down in the morning down to the beach here. We live on the beach in Sydney, and we go down there, get a coffee in the morning, and there's people down there playing with their kids and pushing the pram or pushing their kids on the bikes or whatever it might be. But so many of these parents are sitting there pushing the pram in one hand, on the phone in the other, checking their Facebook or whatever it is. Would that fall under relationship?
Yeah, I think, it will, because that's a choice you're making now that has ramifications of your future.
Yeah.
My kids, and I'm an entrepreneur. I can't claim to be perfect. I have been known to pick up my phone in the wrong circumstances. My kids have come to me and said, "Hey, Dad, you're with us, right?"
Drop the phone.
And I'm like, "Yep." Drop the phone, put it away, and then you go on to have a good old time.
Yep.
I've learned that life is not going to fall apart, even in business will not fall apart in an hour.
Yeah.
It just won't.
And really, if you've built the business right, it shouldn't really make a difference anyway, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. If you invest in your time with your relationships, your family specifically, if you'll invest that time, you'll find that they'll let you invest more time in the business that you're trying to create. However, if they feel like that you're only married to your business and they have no place in your life, they will begin to act like it.
Yeah.
Your children will begin to act out. Your spouse may begin to flirt with other people. So be careful. Pay them attention.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us like to focus on the next pillar, which is financial. Most of us like to focus on how much money we can make or whatever kind of boat or house we can have, not realizing that stuff is pointless.
Right.
I have had the blessing and the opportunity to earn high levels of income. And I have to be honest, there are times when I was earning the most that I was the least happy, and I could have bought anything.
Yeah.
And here's why. As you mature and as you get older, one of the things you realize is you will typically value impact more than you'll value financial gain. You'll value your employee buying their first house. You'll value your child hitting their first state championship. You'll value spending a quiet moment when you're with your wife, like I just did this past weekend, after months of pushing it and going hard. And all we had a fire, a mountain view, and a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And that meant more to me than earning $1 million.
Yeah.
Because I was with somebody that I loved, that I knew that deeply loved me, and I was able to just let the world go for a few minutes. Those moments of peace and joy, I think, are the greatest gifts in life.
I feel like that's a really big disconnect in modern society. Like people just get so caught up with that one pillar, that whole financial pillar, they lose track of what's really valuable, what's really important.
Yeah, it's the most marketed to point of view.
Gotcha.
Everything you see, I open your refrigerator and I guarantee you'll see some brands.
Yeah.
There is marketing everywhere. And I think that marketing, while it's I use it too. I mean, I'm sure you use marketing. It benefits your business, but we're so inundated with it that we don't even know what we really believe or what we really desire anymore.
Yeah.
You can buy a brand new vehicle today. A year from now, they've already got a new one out, just like it, different color, couple different options. You're like, ooh, it has Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Oh, it has Wi-Fi now. Oh my gosh. Not realizing that somebody can actually hack into it and drive it off a cliff for you. The latest and greatest isn't always the best thing. Really what's important is what kind of impact can you make?
Yeah.
What kind of mark can you leave on that on this world that's be here long after you're gone. I think that's one of the things that I do in business that I'm really passionate about, and that is making sure that whatever I do, it can be here long after I'm gone. It's not, in other words, it's not about my personal gain as much as it is about sustainability. I want my kids, my grandkids, to be able to be proud of the businesses that I create in an effort to provide stable work environments for great people who have ambitions in life. You'll find that most people, once they get all the stuff, they get the nice house, that one or two things happen. Either they become kind of like me and realize it doesn't really make a hill of beans and it doesn't really matter, or they tie all of their identity to it.
Yeah.
And the first time something comes along and takes it away from them, they want to jump off a bridge.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a certain level of balance and maturity that happens in developing a business focused on legacy rather than focused on gain.
Yeah. I mean, and for a lot of listeners out there, obviously, my listeners are largely trade businesses, contractors, etc. I wonder if that's like a hard pill for them to swallow, saying, well, I'm a plumber.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a plumber. What legacy am I going to leave? Your drains won't get blocked anymore.
Well, check this out. So I'm glad you actually brought up a plumber. I was at a builder function. One of my customers had a retiring ceremony for one of their team members. I've been with them since the creation of their company. And lo and behold, a woman stood up to thank this gentleman for his years of service. And she stood up and she said, my dad knew you. Now, he passed away 2 years ago. And she proceeded to talk to this man like she had known him all of her life. And then he opened his mouth and said, your father was more than just a plumber to me. He was my friend. He was someone who I deeply admired and trusted. I knew that if I called him, he would be there. Mm-hmm. And I know because of him and because of you, because of what he's poured into you, the business will always be there. And we're proud to continue doing business, even though your father passed away.
Yeah.
There's more to your business than just the service you provide.
Yeah.
There's more.
No, it's very true. And so what's the final pillar?
The final pillar is probably my favorite just because it's guided my life, and it comes in different forms for different people. But spiritual.
Yeah.
Spirituality. You mentioned going to the beach. Some people get really fed, really energized, replenished by going to the beach or the mountains. Yeah. I happen to do it through a variety of different things, but one of which is prayer and meditation. Mm-hmm. I believe that all the miracles that have happened to me in my life, and I'm a walking, talking miracle 100 times over, have come from a divine connection that I can't always put into words. But he walked the earth and took good care of me, and I hope to see him again sometime. But that's my spirituality, but for others, it might be a little different. But it's important to have spirituality to whatever degree that you're willing to accept it, because it provides replenishment. It provides that moment where your soul becomes encouraged and strengthened and maintained and stronger. A lot of us will run through life, we'll ignore spirituality, we ignore any kind of divine possibilities. And because of that, we end up chasing all the stuff that we've been talking about that will lead them towards nowhere.
Yeah.
Once you get it, I'm telling you right now, it won't mean as much to you as you think you might. So do something different with your life.
I think there's a really big, and I'd like, if you've got time, to maybe just draw a bit of a line in the sand in this one, or maybe explain, I suppose, the difference. Because I know here, especially in Australia, like that word alone, spirituality, kind of has a very strong religious connotation. And for a better part, there's a lot of Australians out there, especially tradespeople, that would consider themselves relatively atheist, which is their decision, whatever it is.
Yep.
What's the difference, in your opinion, between being religious and being spiritual?
Well, that's a hard question for me to answer without actually sharing my point of view on faith as a whole. But
yeah,
I'll try to do it this way out of respect for your listeners. I believe that spirituality is nothing more than being open to divine possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that I do not believe in religion. A reason being is because there's something that's in the Americas, we've coined the phrase church hurt.
Yeah.
And that is when hurt people in the name of a God, under whatever they call them. And I believe that's not only inappropriate, it's completely contradictory to what the person that I follow taught.
Right.
So I believe that through spirituality, you can learn to be a little more graceful, a little more merciful. You can learn to forgive yourself for mistakes. You can forgive others for mistakes. You can grow in a deeper way that, and I hate to say this, but it honestly leads you towards another level of enlightenment. Those that are focused only with what they see in this world, unfortunately, will be found wanting after the fact, because a lot of times on their deathbed, they're like, I amassed all. In fact, perfect story. Steve Myrick. I know we talked about him before, but I remember I got to see him right before he passed away, and I went with my dad. And my dad asked him, was kind of joking around, half-heartedly joking around with him, and said, Steve, he goes, man, you're a millionaire several times over. Oh my gosh, you built so many houses. People love you and they admire you. And he took the mask off his face and he said, Glenn, he said, I'm a millionaire with no health. What good is my money now?
Right.
At some point in time, you're going to have to confront your mortality as a whole. And there's a better place to be if you can have peace with it as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people, even atheists, I got some atheist friends and we go back and forth, but even they will agree that there's things that are spiritual in nature that they can't explain. They've been around me long enough to watch miracles happen around me and near me that they know they can't explain. One reached out to me not too terribly long ago and said, I'm just curious. Why do you think that is? And I said, well, because I focus on my spirituality. I focus on creating soul health, if you will, rather than just body health.
Right.
My soul is made anew when I feed myself great information in my mind and my eyes and my heart and my ears. My soul is replenished when I can find peaceful, quiet moments to reflect and ponder the divine, if you will.
See, that's to me what spirituality really is. It's more about being able to sit back and reflect and, take like a logical approach to the way that you carry out whatever it may be. It's a way that you can sort of relate to yourself a little bit more. So I think that's a bit of a disconnect there with people, that it's not necessarily about having to, go to church or meditate all the time, all this kind of, well, I suppose effectively meditation is a great way to develop spirituality. But I think it's really important that people recognize that, being spiritual means that you're really just being honest with yourself and you're finding a way that you can, I suppose, reflect, relate, and develop yourself from the inside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Your spiritual health is very, very important. when your spirit is not healthy, your body won't be either. How many people do you know that look great? Actresses, actors, that models, they get ripped.
Yeah.
And they look in tip-top shape. They got everything at their fingertips. They got the whole world. They got all the money they need, and they'll go out and commit suicide.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do not underestimate the power of spiritual health.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you pretty much brought up the example I was going to say. The financial pillar and the spiritual pillar could very often clash heads.
Yes.
People get so caught up in making money that they forget about what the right thing is to do and how to go about it.
Absolutely. The one thing that I do that I feel like I do differently than some that has benefited me in my life towards successful behaviors is I do something every single day that focuses on my mind, my body, and my soul.
I have one question written down here, and it was like in relation to this podcast. It was, what does a successful day look like to you? What is it that you do every day as a routine?
Well, what success looks like to me is I made an impact that day to make somebody else's day better. That is the most successful day you can have. Because you're going to face adversity day after day.
Yeah,
you're going to go through those kinds of things. I think that's the kind of the biggest part. And there was a second part of your question. I forgot. I apologize, but I misheard it. What was the second part of your question?
The question was more, so you touched on it there, and there's certain things you do every day to ensure that you have what you would consider a successful day. What are they?
Yes. Well, the first thing I do is I hit the gym.
Yep.
Every morning, first thing in the morning, it raises your endorphins and your serotonin and gets your blood pumping before your day can attack you.
Yep. Because
if you let it go too far, it'll attack you. And the next thing you know, there is no gym, there is no health, there's none of that stuff.
What time?
For me, it's 5:30 a.m.
Yep.
For others, it could be in the afternoon. But I think it's important to do something every day that that keeps you physically active.
Yep.
If nothing else, to just counteract the cortisol that your body will build up with natural stress. The other thing I do is I mind, body, soul. So I'll build my body. I also build my mind through podcasts a lot of times while I'm working out.
Yep.
I'll listen to podcasts or watch a couple of YouTube channels, things of that nature. And some days I might be focused on one of the 8 pillars. I may be looking at a YouTube channel or a podcast or a book or something like that, or an audiobook that is doing a deep dive into, let's say, my emotional life or my financial life. The other thing that I'll typically do is I spend my first part of my day being grateful for the opportunities that I have by waking up another day to get to go make an impact.
And what does that look like?
Through prayer. For me, it's kneeling down, palms up, and praying to a God that I believe in, that has proven to me he exists because of the miracles he's given me over and over again, and getting some of that divine inspiration.
Yep.
Some of my best ideas have come from that quiet time that I'm able to pull in before the day can get to me.
Yep, 100%. Great. So that's a pretty good framework. Gym in the morning, listen to some sort of education podcast or something of value.
That's right.
And then prayer and reflection.
That's right. Avoid the news channels because they don't help you.
Oh, yeah.
So they're designed to only give you negative. So,
exactly. Yeah.
We spend all this time and we put all this into an online school that if anybody finds like their life is stuck or if they want a little more from life, they can, in fact, we actually, they can test it out for one day if they want and go check it out and then let us know if they like it.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to record these podcasts with you at this point in time is because here in Australia, I'm pretty sure it's not in the United States, but we have here in Australia, it's actually Tradies National Health Month, which is it's basically an initiative that was put forward by the Chiropractic Society of Australia, believe it or not. But it's an initiative to empower tradespeople and improve health overall, physical health, mental health, and anything in between, and anything that blurs the lines. A large facet of this, initiative is directed at mental health. And so, if you wouldn't mind maybe giving us some details towards this program, if there's anybody out there who's listening to this that could use some help in that regard, or could, maybe wants to put a bit of work into it, then I'm sure your program would be a fantastic resource for them.
Oh, absolutely. It's, again, I'm about impact. I actually want to inspire and change 1 million lives before I die.
Yep.
That's something that's, is again, trying to serve the person I once was, the person who was stuck, the person who lived life fairly empty day after day, not knowing what was next. And keep in mind, I've had that happen twice, once while homeless and once while wealthy.
Yeah.
So your wealth has nothing to do with, or even your ability to serve has nothing to do with your overall being, if you will. So we about 2 years ago, earlier this year, we launched Transform You on Live, which was a 3-day all-inclusive, all-intensive seminar on you as a person. What we ran into was it was so much information, and people got so much of transformation from themselves that they wanted to have more access to it. So they inspired us to create Transform You Online, which is a lot of the live event content, along with some practical tools that you can use today in order to figure out where you're at, what to do next, along with some, we have a coaching inside the platform, e-coaching. You can do forums. It's a very cool, very cool platform. I'm very excited about it, to be honest with you.
So that's transformuonline.com.
It is. It's transformuonline.com. Mm-hmm. And my team actually put something together for your listeners, just for you today.
Okay.
And it's actually going to be, if they go to Transform You Online, and let me make sure that you is just the letter U.
Oh, okay.
transformuonline.com/1day.
Okay.
So transformuonline.com/1day. And anybody who listens can get to sneak peek for a day.
Is that the number one?
No, it's just the letter. I'm sorry, the written out one.
O-N-E. Okay.
Yep. 1 day.
All right. Fantastic.
Transformu.com 1 day. And they can log in and get free access to it and check it out and let us know how they like it.
Brilliant. Well, look, I'll definitely put links to that in the show notes. That's great. Thank you to you and your team.
Matt, man, you've been awesome, dude. I hope I haven't blown your ear off too much.
Mate, it's been fantastic. And I'll let you get back to your family. I know it's getting late over there, so I appreciate your time. You've certainly been feeding value into the microphone, so I very much appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks again, my friend.
All right, mate. Good on you. Ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to the siteshed.com where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.